Okay, so we had done the verse number 6. We had finished that, and we're going to deal with the verse number 7, where Bhagavan has already discussed about the Daivi Sampat. He's going to tell about the Asuri Sampat, and what is the purpose of telling good students about how the bad students behave? Because that Heya and Upadaya, whatever is good, is what we treat that as something we would like to have cultivated in our lives. What is here, that also the don'ts are also to be mentioned, so that we got to be careful and we want to stay away from them. That is the purpose of this. So prabritimcha nibritimcha jana na vidura suraha na saucham napi chacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. So these asuras are like this. Who are these asuras? We have already clarified that by asura, Bhagavan is not referring to some people with horns or people with large teeth or big mustache or stuff like that that we have seen in the comic books. They are referring to us human beings. And that he has amply clarified that there is no third category called human beings. The Ashuri and the Daivi Shampat and Ashuri Shampat, that is present in all of us. It could be amongst different kind of people. So some persons may have a heavy load of Asuri Sampat throughout their lives, but this is not fixed. The same person may display or experience the impact of having leftovers of bad sanskaras of last life, and therefore he may show signs of having Asuri Sampat at birth, but then he can undergo changes. And a good person who is born with a lot of Asuri Sampat, if he doesn't invest it and expand it and act and work on those good qualities, he doesn't make use of them in a positive way, he might let them go waste and may cultivate certain Ashuri Sampat. End of the day, whatever good, bad qualities we have, what we want to expand will increase, and what we do not want to expand will anyway will lose them. They are not going to stick with us for a long time. So this prabritimcha nibritimcha jana na vidura suraha. So these asuraha na viduhu, asuraha janaha na viduhu kim. What they don't know? Prabritimcha nibritimcha. Neither they know about those things which are shastra vihita, and then they sort of become sadhana for abhyudaya, for your ascent. In materially, spiritually, you want to rise up in life. There are certain things, as they say in management, that whatever decision we take, either it closes a few doors or opens up a few doors in life. Each decision has significance. Now, they do not know what is prabriti. That means whatever are good for us, we need to engage with them. They are not aware of it. Nor do they know about what are the things that we should not engage in, the nibriti things, where we should be avoiding. We should stay off a few things. So they might engage in this. That is the purpose. And then that is not enough. It's not only knowledge. It's quite possible that there is an ignorant person who's not very educated, and therefore he doesn't know how to do things in a very fine, sophisticated manner. So by his very nature and whatever little understanding he has, he might all the time find out from others. He may have the basic good qualities. Like, for example, there is a job, and there may be 5 guys all having similar technical qualifications, technically very qualified. But one person may have worked in different sectors, and then he says that I'm bringing in the overall life experience as a manager or the leader, and he may be looked at favorably, even though he may not be a domain expert. So he's now mentioning about in the second line of it, na saucham napi cha charaha. Neither saucham, the overall thing, if somebody who is neat and tidy, so that cleanliness of the mind, physical and mental, he doesn't have. Those guys don't have. Napi achara cha, good behavior. One is how one looks and how one behaves. So even their behavior is not very polished, they're very uncouth. And then what is worse, na satyam, and they are not even truthful. So a person may not have very good understanding of what to do, what not to do. He joins a company. But imagine if he has the other three qualities, like he's a very clean and neat guy, he keeps his office very clean, and he's very well mannered, and he's very truthful. Most likely, everybody would like to have him as an intern. Everybody will be willing to be a mentor in the organization. And in a couple of years, he has very high learning aptitude. He can pick up the basic things. He may not go to the top. He may not get a great assignment to start with, but he will be associated in groups. People will welcome him in their technical groups because he is not going to be a liability, but the Asura will be a liability. So, what's very important to sort of isolate the asuras in whatever field of life we have, because they are going to create problems. So they don't have cleanliness, they don't have good behavior, good manners, and they are not very truthful. In addition to that, they do not know what is advisable, what is useful, and what is not useful. So they are sarva anartha karana in a way. So they will cause a lot of hardship. It's not that they are selfish, because if they're intelligent and selfish, they'll try to have a few things for them, but they're actually stupid. So they will do things which hurt them in the long term. They value those things. They do not know. They are just looking at it in a very myopic way. That's what he's explaining at length. It's not very big, it's very simple, and he's explaining the verse number 7. Prabriti. Now I'm just focusing on Madhusudana Saraswati because more or less it covers of everything that Sankaracharya says. What is prabritim? Prabriti Vishayam is the subject matter of whatever sort of moves us, inspires us to engage in things. Prabriti Vishayam. And what is that? Dharmam. So they don't know what is dharma. Cha karat tati pratipadakam vidivakyam cha. And tat pratipadakam dharma pratipadakam kim vidivakyam. So there are certain prescriptive sentences. So whenever a person joins in any particular company, they ask him to do a few online courses, like know your company, or what is the organization, how the structure is there, and how this whole. I mean, especially in big organizations, they have a learning module you have to complete within the probation period, about 6 months or 8 months, and then you have to go for a training program where they test. There's an online test where you are fully captured and fully because you are representing your company, especially if it's a multilateral agency. There's a lot of organizational learning which is given to that guy whosoever joins, because he might misrepresent the vision and the mission and the ethical code of conduct and what to do, everything, when he's supposed to be given a few tips that they don't know, Vidyavakyam. So they haven't read the Shastras. They haven't read the Dharma Shastras. They don't have basic understanding what should be done, what shouldn't be done. For example, like children, we must have been told that if you're sitting and there are some elders, you can't cross them and go. So you're supposed to, you have to take their permission, you quietly stand up and you show your fingers that you are going to go. You can't just cross through elderly people sitting if it's in a meeting. Similarly, if you're eating with people, you can't just stand up and go. There's these achara, vyavahara, everything. What we should do. If you're doing a yaga, on what date you have to do, what should be the way in which that mandap has to be done, which way you want to do a homam for a birthday of your child, how should you do a certain ritual, all these are there. There's a whole lot of literature relating to these questions. Evam nibritim, what is that? Nibriti Vishayam. And what is that? Adharmam. They also do not know what is adharma. What is papakaraka? What kind of activities will be the cause of our going to the hell? If we look at it in a ritual, theistic way, a traditional way, this is what is the meaning. Chakara tati pratipadakam nishedha vakyam. So in the Karmakanda sections of the Vedas, there are certain vidhi vakyas and there is pratiseda vakyas. And there are a few arthavada vakyas, which are stuti or ninda paraka. So they say a few things. Vayurve Khepishta Devata. The Vayu Devata is very fast moving. And this is Stuti, Stuti Paraka. Why is he saying this? If you worship Vayu Devata, the results you are looking for will first, you can realize them faster than if you worship other Devatas. That is the Stuti Paraka Vakya for them. These are the certain stutis which are done, and certain, for example, you should not give silver coins in pujas as dakshina. But there is this story that Rudra, Lord Shiva, there was this Kuvera who gave his wealth to Lord Shiva because they had to fight with the Rakshasas, the Asuras, demons. And then Kuvera and the Devatas return, and by them, because he's Asutasa and he's a very compassionate guy, all the wealth the Devatas had stored with him, he had distributed among his devotees and the poor people. So when he said, "But I had kept my wealth with you, whereas this gold and all?" Lord Shiva, it is said, started crying. He said, "I'm so sorry. I have already given away to poor people because I thought you were going to lose the battle." So when he cried, his tears became silver coins. Now the sentence is like this: whosoever gives silver coins as dakshina in the yagas is going to suffer. He's going to cry like Lord Shiva. That is the sentence. So, saw arodhitasya, rudratvam tasya. So that particular sentence is there, that he cried. So if you give silver coins, you will cry like him. So you will suffer. That is what is hinted. So what it is saying, you should not give silver coins. You should give, if you are doing a big yaga or anything, give golden coins. Okay, this is meant for the kings who are doing those big yagas. So these are certain vidhi paraka and nishedha paraka. So you should not ma hingsa sarva bhutani. You should not do any hingsa towards anybody unless there is a ritualized purpose for which you are doing any hingsa. Should not do any hingsa. All these nisheda varagavakya. Kalanjam na bhakshet. You should not take meat which is kind of procured through killing an animal with arrows which are dipped in poison, and that sort of is symbolically representative even of onions and garlics, they say. If you're doing so, similarly, there are Nishat Varagavakya that if you're doing a very big yaga and there are certain rules and regulations, even if you are married with your wife, you are supposed to practice celibacy during the period of that yaga. So these are Nishedha Paraka. You should not do a few things, and you should do a few things. These are Vidhi and Nishedha Varagavakyas. These guys do not know them. And then what else? Atha teshu na saucham dvividham. I mean, they do not know the Shastra, says they also do not know what is cleanliness and what are the rules and regulations. So generally in good families, if you're doing any puja or anything, if you have gone to the toilet, you're supposed to take a bath before you sort of enter a temple or do any puja or anything. These are rules. Well, a lot of people do not know about it. Okay, they go to toilet and they'll not change dress and they come. So these are napi acharo manvadi ukta, and whatever the manners which are prescribed, they also are not aware of it. Na satyam, and they are also not people who tell truth. And then I have told you earlier, satyam here is not just mentioning a fact, but mentioning a fact which is yathartha, that is as per what has happened, as per reality. Number two, it is hitakaraka. That means it doesn't cause any harm to anyone. That is another important indicator. So he says, Satyam bruyad, priyam bruyad, na bruyad, satyam apriyam. Priyam cha nanrutam bruyat. Bruyad esha dharma sanatana. So you should, whenever we are telling truth, we should tell not only what is factually true, but it should be also, which is kalyana karaka. It should help. And so, as I was telling that, the Shastra says that it's called very bad to be very cruel to somebody. So there's a girl, let's imagine, or a boy who isn't very good looking, and you're saying that you look like Prince Charming, you look like Queen Elizabeth. What are you trying to do? You're trying to hurt that particular person, even though he isn't really attractive. If he says, "So how do I look? I'm going for I'm going for an interview." Say you look reasonably well, and if you can have some genuine, real advice, give that. But don't say you look very shabby, you're bad, and maybe she or he doesn't have very good clothes. If you can help, do that, but do not cause pain or emotional trauma in a person through your words, even though they are true. If they cause pain, they are not considered to be satyam in our tradition. That is what is important. And then, na satyam, what is that? Priya hita yathartha vashanam. They should be priya, good to hear. Number two, hita janaka. They are actually in the interest of that fellow, it's sort of going to help them. So we have to twist our words so that it becomes inspiring for that person. And then yathartha vashanam, artham anatikramya, whatever. If it is 5 You should not say it's 7. Don't exaggerate. Or don't say it's 3. So yathartha vasanam vidyate. Saucha satyayor acharantara bhavepi. Satya and a saucha. You could include that. That cleanliness and speaking truth could be included in appropriate behavior, good manners. You could include that. Then why is it separately mentioned? Brahmana parivrajaka nyayana prithag upadanam. So, in earlier days, the sannyasa diksha was generally given only to the Brahmins. Why? They thought these guys have studied the Shastras. These guys have some vairagya because of whatever sanskar or whatever. So when they go, and generally poor, Brahmins were generally materially poor. So if they take sannyas diksha, they can handle a situation of poverty in life, which is voluntary poverty. So they can live with 1 square meal a day and with just two pairs of clothes. And there's a strict rule that you can ask for viksha in only 5 or 7 houses, and if you don't get it, you're supposed to stay just like that without food. There is a lot of hardship. So initially, those days, they were giving diksha to only Brahmanas, but later on, Sureshwaracharya, who was the head of Sringeri Mutt, said that no, because the Vaidika karma is kind of everybody, 3 categories of people, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishyas, they all have adhikara. And obviously, they have karma adhikara, means karma tyaga adhikara also they have. So you should also be able to give them sannyasa. So he interpreted it like that. And now, of course, people are not looking at caste like Ramakrishna Mission and the Vaishnavas. They don't care for Traivanik or not. They are just looking at whether the person has the right attitude. He has the vairagya, very strong vairagya. Then they give sannyasa. But the orthodox guys, the Shankaracharyas and all, they don't give. So they still stick to their own rules or whatever Sureshwaracharya has sort of prescribed. So now he's saying Brahmana parivrajaka nyayana. So if you say, I am doing a feast, bring some Brahmana parivrajaka, what do you mean by that? If you mention parivrajaka, by nature he'll be a Brahmin. He will be someone who is a Brahmin because he has left his temple and pujas and all, and he has become a parivrajaka. So the parivrajaka is Brahmin, but then why are you saying Brahmana parivrajaka, 2 words? It's just tautological, isn't it? So you're just mentioning it. Similarly here in Achara, the Saucham and Satyam both are included. Even then, in order to emphasize their importance, underline their importance, here Bhagavan mentions about Saucham and Achara. And then he says Satyam also separately. Okay? Then, Ausaucha Anachara Anritavadinaha. So what are the Asuras? And don't forget the difference. The Rakshasas are the ones who are Dvesa Pradhana, Hingsa Pradhana, and the Asuras are the ones who are Raga Pradhana. They are hedonistic people, deeply attracted to these objects of sense pleasure. They are Asuras. The Rakshasas, the sense pleasure they have, but they have additional pleasure by hurting others. So you'd find in wherever you are, whether it's a university or a bureaucracy or corporate sector, there'll be a few people you'll come across. They enjoy cutting others, cutting others down, pulling their legs, hurting them. They have some vicarious pleasure. They are the ones who are having Asuri Sampat. Generally, in capitalist society, 90% of people have Asuri Sampat. And in there, some people will be more inclined towards charity and helpfulness and compassion and things like that. They are having Daivi Sampat. You can have a mixed match of all that in different human beings. Now, the next question before we go to the next verse. Nanu dharma dharma yoho, dharma and adharma. Prabriti nirvati vishayoho, prabriti and nibriti vishaya tayoho. Of these, pratipadakam vedakhyam pramanam asti. And there are proofs what we should do in life and what we shouldn't do in life. As for the Vedic texts, they are all well explained. Nirdosham, without any problem. Nirdosham means anavadyam, without any fault. Very nicely they are mentioned. Bhagavat Agya Rupam. And this Veda is what? It's called Brahma Nishwasitam Veda. In the sense, it's kind of, because it is an Apurusha text, it's not constructed by anyone. It's almost like breath of Brahma, Prajapati was. And that is Nitya. He's saying Bhagavat Agya Rupam. And what are they representing? Ishwara Icha. What we should live accordingly. Then, And then finally, Sarvaloka Prasiddham. Everybody is aware of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Tad upajivini cha smriti purana itihasadini santi. And then tad upajivini, which is written, which follow, and which sort of emulate those texts, those advices of the Lord, the wish of the Lord, are verily there. Where if somebody doesn't understand Sanskrit, cannot understand the Vedas, he can read Puranas. If not in Sanskrit, he can read them in his own local language. These are all available. So Itihasa and Purana. So Ramayana Mahabharata is considered to be Itihasa, whereas you have other Puranas, like for example the Ashtadasa Purana. So you have all that. Santi, they are all there. Tat katham prabriti nibriti tat pramana jnanadi ajnana. Why are the asuras not at all aware of them? Why shouldn't a person who is too selfish, who's driven by raga or hedonism, not aware of any good things? Because if he's a Christian, there is Bible. If he's a Muslim, there is Quran. And if he's a Buddhist, there's been a Pitaka. There are different texts there. How is he not aware? Why not? That is the doubt. And if he's Hindu, he will have some texts. He must have read them. Ajnanam. Jnaneva agyo ullanginam sasitari bhagavati sati. And then, the person who is the sasita, who is giving that, somebody who controls, the niyamaka. Bhagavan is also there. Sati katham tad ananushtanena sauchacharadi rahitatvam dushtanam sasituhu bhagavatopi lokaveda prasiddhatvat ataha. And why, when Bhagavan is there, people who know these rules are there, and then Bhagavan is the Sarva Niyamaka, he's supposed to be omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Is there, and they don't do this Achar Vyavahara, it's Loka Prasiddha text. There is a constitution, there is IPC in India, Indian Penal Code, CRPC, everything. And then you violate the law, you will be punished. Why shouldn't the police do anything? What is the state doing? In a cosmological sense, he's asking, what is the God doing? Why are they being permitted to go beyond what is prakriti and nibriti without any jnana, and they're not having the right achara, they don't tell truth, and then they don't have right conduct so far as cleanliness is concerned? How do you explain that? Then he's explaining. Because these guys have a different understanding of life. The Asuras have an inverted awareness of how samsara runs. That is how, if a person is a psychopath, a lot of these people, they commit these crimes, and if you go to them, and you'll find that they have no compunction, they have no repentance. They commit it and they said, so what? Everybody's doing it. I'm not the only guy. The worst criminals. Once in a while, we come across these characters who are obnoxious. It's very difficult to stand. The very presence of them, even on the TV screen, is so depressing. Whether such people exist, isn't it? We had once this character in Austria, I must have read about them, who had several children, and he was sort of using a couple of his daughters to reproduce children and put them in the, I think, in the dungeon, in the basement, and locked them up for years. And accidentally, after several decades, he was caught, and he was already in the 70s or something, or 60s or something. How did he manage to do all this, and he was behaving like a normal guy and living in society? There are quite a few guys who do lots of things. How do they manage to do all that? And why do they do that? What sort of subjectivity is behind the kind of asuric or rakshas like behavior? Is explaining that in the next verse. Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kama heitukam. You know what these people have? They have a different kind of understanding. And that understanding is like this, which is the mother of their wrongful actions, wrongful conduct. There is the virus. That virus is in their own mindset, that very bad, negative mindset they have. Asatyam, first they think that apratishtam, this sansar and everything, they say it's a lie. What is this? There's nothing fundamentally real or genuine or good about it. All the sansara is like this. Number one. Number two, what they say, apratishtham. There is no foundation on which all these are happening. We look at the commentary, how each word he makes sense of. So it's not founded on any particular truth or anything, and any dharma. There is no satya and no dharma. That is what is Jagat. Then how Jagat came? You would ask that question. So how do you explain why this Jagat is going on? There is no truth about it. There is no fundamental truth about it. There is no dharma to sustain this world. We have our theories that papa punya, and because of our karmas, we are reborn in different social categories. And then Bhagavan says that if you're very sattvika, you can go up till Brahma Loka. Otherwise, you'll go maybe different other lokas and you'll come back. You'll do more sadhana till you are liberated. If you are Rajasika, you'll be reborn in a corresponding appropriate social setting where you have to fulfill more roles and responsibilities and experience some sukha. Depending on what your orientation, then your tamasic, you might be maybe reborn in different ethereal yonis as animals. Like they say that if a person is very fond of food and alcohol and stuff like that, reborn. I mean, these are all imaginations. But then there are these mentions in Purana that somebody becomes a pig or somebody becomes a dog. It's too much of sensual desire, he may become a dog, and so on and so forth. These are all imaginary, but these are kind of symbolically talking about what are the outcomes of the kind of activities we are indulging in. So, and then how come the sansara is coming? How? He's saying, no, it's out of desire. Like animals copulate and they create, similarly, it's all out of desire. Kama haitukam. The cause of this sansara is desire. Who are these people? Charvaks. If you ask that Brihaspati Sutra, the Charvak in the Sarvadarshana Sangraha, he says these Brahmins are so stupid. They are wasting their life reading the Sastras and doing these rituals. And they plan after doing these big, big yagas, they'll go to Swarga. They are really stupid. So the student asks that Guru, so what is Swarga? He smiles and says, Nari Alinganam. Hug a beautiful girl. That is heavenly. You're wasting your time staying away from pleasures of life and sitting doing meditation and mantra and this and that, all stupidity. So you try to have sense pleasure as much as you can have. And so you have a bunch of modern day intellectuals who actually take a lot of interest in Charvak, and they think that he was the most democratic because he didn't believe in God, he didn't believe in Atma, and he was the materialist person, and he was actually the most progressive of Indian thinkers. So be it, not a problem. But then, whatever the Charvak says, in the long run, doesn't give you any enlightenment or any happiness. If that was the purpose, there would be no need for people's quest for inner meaning or meaning of life. I mean, there are a lot of people who have a lot of pleasures and they are not happy. There's a kind of vacuous feeling about what they are experiencing in their lives. Now, Satyam, Avadita Tatparya Vishayam. Avadita Tatparya Vishayam. Somebody might say that one should, do Shirshasana for 35 years. Is Vadita or Avadita? Because there will be no proof that one does it for 35 years, he'll become God or anything. So there is no proof. So it becomes Badhita by other proofs, either experience or Pratyaksha or by Shastra. But Avadita Tatparya Vishayam, that is what is Satyam. It is not refutable by any other modes of Pramana. So if a person says that it should be genuinely Avadita, so if I make a truth proposition through anumana, through inference, but it's pratyaksha vadita, pratyaksha pramanena vadita, then you will not follow it. I'll say that there is smoke and therefore there is fire, but actually you see that there is no fire. There is a machine which is producing smoke. Let's imagine like that. Then you have already seen there is no fire. So even if I say there is fire, you will not agree with me because you have already verified it through direct sense perception. So this is avadhita tatparya vishayam. So tattva avedakam, it tells you about that tattva, that atma vastu, vedakhyam, and it's known as Veda, pramanam, tad upajivi, and what are the ones which are sort of, which are relying on them and they're following them, and these texts are called Purana Adi Cha Nasti. So they don't believe that any Pramana is there. What is Veda? No, these are anarthaka. Somebody has written, why should I believe in whatever is written there. Yatra tad asatyam. So they think that asatyam. Veda Swarupasya Pratyaksha Siddhatyopi. Even though Veda Swarupa, the Atma, who can deny that he doesn't exist? So that's why the Vedantis asked the Buddhists when they say Sarvam Shunyameva, they said, who is saying this? Are you saying, do you exist? That will be a simple question the Vedanta asks. The Advaita Vedanta asks the Buddhists, even though they are close cousins and very similar in their arguments. Pratyaksha Siddhatvepi, because we have that Aporoksha Jnana of the Atma. So constantly we are aware of it. We're having thoughts and pleasures and depressions in there. Who is having it? That is as we discussed in the chapter 13, in the first verse itself of the Bhagavad Gita. So then he's saying Siddhatvepi tat pramanya anabhyupagamad visishta bhavaha. So they said no, they will refute it. They will not accept it. Ata eva nasti dharma adharma rupa pratishta vyavastha hetuhu yasya tat apratishtam. What is apratishtam? That particular thing which doesn't have dharma adharma rupa pratishta yasya nasti. Tat kim apratishtam. So that is without a foundation. It's not because of dharma adharma that somebody is rich or somebody is poor. This is all nonsense. You can do whatever you want. And I tell you, these Asuric arguments can be very, very pleasing to the ears of a lot of materialistic people. Tata nasti subha suvayoho karmanoho phaladata. And is there any God or anything? They refuse to accept it. So if we do good activities, I'll be rewarded. Do bad activities, I'll be punished. There's a theory of karma. They laugh at it. What nonsense. So there is no phaladata. Who will give you phala? Karma will give you result. Is there a niyamaka? Is there a boss? Any supreme God or anything? No, they don't accept it. Yasya tad anishwaram. So he says Jagat ahur anishwaram. It is anishwara. There is no God, nothing. They are complete nastikas. They are atheists. Te ashuraha jagat ahu. That jagat is asatyam, apratishtam, and anishwaram. That is what jagat is all about. Then, balavad papa pratibandhad vedasya pramanyam te na manyante. What Veda does, there is a word in Mimamsaka. Balavad hani. There is a balavad hani. For example, what? Just imagine that there is some payasam is given, some sweet dish is given to you, and somebody tells you that it's poison. Would we eat? Would I eat it? Would you eat it? You know it's very tasty. This is your most favorite recipe, but it may be poison. Or somebody may have touched it who is infected with a very terrible disease. Would you take that food? No, you will not take it. Why? Because there is balavad anishta. The fear of balavad anishta, that anishta which is very powerful, and balavad anishta anuvandhitvam is there. It is balavad anishta anuvandhi. So it will harm you. So what will you have? Which is balavad anishta ananuvandhi, which is not going to sort of subject you to balavad anishta. That kind of thing you will do. Here, what is Veda? Is balavad papa pratibandha hetu. Swabhavataha. Maybe you have gone to a friend and there are people having booze and party and food and stuff like that, and they are saying, let's do a bit of gambling. Gambling is bad. It's prohibited in the Vedas. Gambling you should not do. Now, it's specially prohibited for certain castes, including Brahmins. Strictly prohibited. You cannot do gambling. Now you are going there, you say, let me do, I'm in Las Vegas, why not do it just for the heck of it? Might make a little money. Now that balavad papa, which is likely to happen because all the conditions have been fulfilled. You have already taken a little alcohol, you have taken food, you are in company, you are all in a very jolly mood. Everybody is throwing some dollars to check their fate, and you want to also do it. Now you remember your shastra that I'm not supposed to do it. I will not get into it. That balavad papa pratibandha hetu is the Veda. That is the shastras that we follow, but they don't accept it. Okay, they don't accept it. Balavad hetu asya pramanyam te na manyante. The pramana of the Veda that it saves you from going to narka, from committing what is swabhavatah prapta. You are ready to do it because of raga dvesha. and that helps you. They don't accept the value of Shastra like that. Tatasya, and therefore, tad bodhitayor dharma dharmayor ishwarasya cha anangikarad. And then the one who is supposed to reward and punish us for dharma and adharma karya, or karya anusthana, they don't accept that niyanta also. Then what happens? They don't have angikara, they don't accept. Then what happens? Yatheshta sarena. So they will have yatheshta acharana. The moment you wish, the way you want, you will do it. Yatheshta acharanena cha purushartha vrashtaha. And these people are purushartha because the dharma, artha, kama, moksha. They are not interested, and they are not at all pursuing that. They don't believe in these purusharthas. What is dharma? What is kama? Whatever you want to do, you do. Don't follow it. But you cannot say that these Ravana was asura or something. These people were having their rules and regulations. They had some weaknesses because which they were terminated. But they were not flouting dharmas blindly. But there were a few asuras who are completely only asuric property, no exposure to Shastra and everything. Brahman was a kind of in these 10 heads. How the 10 heads? There are certain texts to explain that he had the 4 Vedas and the Sadangas. He was aware of all of them. Therefore, he was 10-headed. But symbolically, if you look at it from a psychoanalytic point of view, what was Ravana? He actually had a multiple personality disorder, isn't it? So he was reading a lot of things. He was very protective of his family. He had a wife whom he loved, but then he got somebody's wife and trying to marry her, but at the same time scared. Sends Sita to stay with Mandodari. He doesn't violate her. He's scared because he's a curse. It's kind of a divided, split personality, having multiple personality disorder. I'm not talking about them. The real asuras are the ones absolutely don't recognize any Shastra or anything. And they're kind of despicable, wretched characters. Then, before we go to the next verse, so Bhagavan is having a bit of discussion. Sastreka samadhigamya dharma dharma sahayena. So, with the help of the Shastras, what is dharma and adharma? So, you have that adhigamya vishaya sahayana, prakriti adhishtatra. And who is the prakriti and the adhishtana of that, which is Ishvara, Brahman, Bhagavan. Paramashvarina rahitam. And then, absolutely, they are kind of bereft of the grace of God. Yagad ishyate chet karana bhavat katham tad utpatihi ityasankya aha. Somebody would say that you don't accept dharma, which is the cause of birth of people with certain dispositions, well placed or ill placed, whatever. And the niyanta also you don't accept of the jagat. And then you think jagat is happening. Please explain to us how the jagat happens. Then the asura will say, what? Bhavat katham tad utpatihi, how this jagat utpati happens, asangyaha, aparaspara sambhutam, aparaha paraha sambhutam. That's some sanyoga, the kama sambandha. Kama prayuktayoho, stri pungsayor anyonya sanyogat sambhutam. Like a man and a woman, they don't follow any rules, any regulations. They do not know what is the sacred purpose of marriage. You are supposed to keep the sun as your witness and fire is your witness. Why are we doing all this? This is a moral responsibility, isn't it? So that is why the word is the wife is referred to as Saha Dharmini. She is together going to do dharma. So she is part of the Purushartha. The ghee which is offered in the yagas, if she doesn't look at it, it's not purified, it's not Sanskrita. Therefore, you cannot do any yaga. There are few rituals in which the wife is supposed to do a couple of rituals and then the husband can actually. And the punya phala, whatever the husband might spend the money, 50% of the punya anyway goes to wife as per the Vedic rules. 50% she gets. That is why she is called Sahadharmini. She has equal rights, even though the rituals are kind of done. From a gender perspective, you can argue that the Vedic rites give predominance to the male member. Fine. But the fruits of these Vedic rituals, 50% goes to the wife. That is as simple as that. Now, they don't accept all that. So, what do they say? What is the need of this dharma, adharma jnana, and good achara, saucha? Even if a very dirty, absolutely untruthful, and then very badly behaved, rude, cruel, one man, one woman. They connect. What happens? They have a baby. Sansara starts. So there is no qualification which prevents the game of nature to continue. So the Jagat can be possible. That's what I'm saying. Sambhutam Jagat Kama Hetukam. What is Kama Hetukam? Kama Hetukam Eva. That is what is called Kama Hetukam. The cause of this samsara is only and only desire, out of which everything happens. They have an extremely materialistic position. They don't recognize anything else. Kama atirikta karana shunyam. There is nothing else other than that. Nanu. Dharmadi api asti karanam na ityaha kim anyat. No, but we have seen there is some dharma. We have seen that even among animals, they respect each other. They don't unnecessarily harm each other. If they are not hungry, they don't kill. How can you say there is absolutely no dharma? He's saying, no, kim anyat, what else? Anyat adrishtam karanam kim asti nasti eva ityartha. There is nothing else, only desire. That explains why the sansar is all about. Adrishta angikara karepi, even though you accept papa punya, whatever, kvachid गत्वा स्वभावे पर्यवसनात् स्वाभाविकम एव जगत वैचित्र्यम अस्तु दृष्टे संभवति अदृष्ट कल्पना अनवकाशात्. Now there is a rule in Mimamsa. While interpreting the rules of Mimamsa, there is a certain advice. What do they say? Sambhavati drishta. Now for example, if you study hard, if you eat food, you will feel your hunger is satiated. If you take this particular medicine, or you take some green vegetables and spinach and stuff like that, if you have anemia, that is addressed. This is drishta phala. Why should you do adrishta kalpana, that I have to do some Vedic rituals written in Vedas? There's no need, because it is a drishta phala. And you have some karma, you do it, you get the result. What is the need of going into dharma and adharma, all this jnana? It's unnecessary. That Mimamsa says that if you directly there is drishta phala, there is no way to imagine there is any adrishta phala there. However, he says brihin avahanti. Now this brihi avahanana, there is a particular method in which you take the chaff away from the rice before you make the puroda. So somebody might ask, he can do it nakha vidananadi, but with his nails he'll remove the chaff, or there are other ways he will do it. He says no. If you do as per the rules, you will have special adrishta, niyama purva. You follow the rule, and therefore you will get some extra punya there. That is what is mentioned here. He's saying if there is a drishta phala, so you should milk the cow, because there is a rule which says ghee has to be offered. Ghee has to be offered. Ghee will come out of what? Cow milk. So you have to refine the butter, and then you will make ghee, and that purified butter has to be offered. So milking the cow, there is a drishtafala. Of course, there is a rule the wife has to do in certain rituals. Then only punya happens. But there is no need for any rules, because the cow has to be milked, the milk has to be made butter, and then you get ghee. This is all going to give you drishtafala. Adrishta kalpana is superfluous, not required. Similarly, when through sexual contact of the living beings the sansara can continue, what is the point of unnecessarily bringing in these Vedic rituals and the Vedic texts and all? The Charvaka says, don't waste my time. He stops there. Ataha kama eva pranam karanam. So therefore, all here because of desire, because of the sexual contact between male and female partners. Now, anya adrishte ishwaradi ityadir ahu lokayatika drishtihi ityatha. So this is the lokayat philosophy. Now, you might argue with me, and that will be very reasonable. I'll accept that lokayata philosophy is not so simple. It is a particular representation of their thought. It's possible that there is something called susikshita lokayata, a little sophisticated ones, like JRC and all. There are a few. So then Charvak, but there were a few guys who are a little more sophisticated, and they came up with more nuanced responses to the criticism of the people of Charvak Darshana. But we are not going that thing. Broadly, this is a summary representation of one atheistic philosophy which recognizes human desire as the foundation of this world. So this is, in a way, the first hedonistic school of thought on earth, because they're very old, much before the Epicurean thinking in Greece. And then in England, you had Jeremy Bentham and James Mill, the father of John Stuart Mill. These guys were talking about pleasure is the highest goal of life in India. They were known as the Lokayata philosophers. Young drishti शास्त्रीय दृष्टि वद Ishcha eva ityasankya aha. So if there could be a doubt, so is it a perfect thing to at all meditate on that, accept that kind of a doubt is sort of, so he's kind of is it kind of also desirable? Is it a philosophy which we can practice? Because they appear to be logical. Why not? If somebody has, then he's answering that. एतां दृष्टिमस् अवष्टभ्य नष्टात्मानोऽल्पबुद्धयः प्रभवन्त्युग्रकर्माणः क्षयाय जगता हिताः Now, jagato hitaha. Etam drishti avastabhya. By using this philosophy of life, by relying on this kind of a faulty perception, what these people do, the asuras, nastatmas. They are nastatmas. Why? They are not doing any punya to go to Swarga. What is going to be the foundation for spiritual ascent or even material ascent? Because if you do good work, good activities, you will get good results, but they don't recognize it. They are nastatmas. Nastatma, why? Atma is everywhere. Why should a Vedanti talk like this? No, nastatma in the sense they do not realize. They are kripanas. They are miserly people. They don't understand the importance of the self and how they should behave. Alapa buddhaya, because they are stupid. They have a very limited understanding. Prabhavanti ugra karmanaha, and they indulge in all sorts of violent activities. Why? Kshayaya. That is, to diminish the value of the sansara of their own, and ahitaha, jagataha ahitaha. And they do all kinds of ahita janaka karyas. That's what he's saying. Etam praguktam loka etika drishtim. So these asuras rely on the lokayata philosophy. So anyway, there is a snide remark on the lokayata thinkers. End of the day, the lokayata philosopher perhaps was also a very learned Brahmin because he wrote in very good Sanskrit. So lokaitika drishtim avastabhya, alambya, they rely on that philosophy. They are nashtatmanaha, so they are nashtatmas. Bhrasta paraloka sadhana. So what is going to be your next birth? If you do good karmas, you will have a good birth. That is what is the traditional Vedic view. But they are bhrastas. They are not bothering about it. They think this is the only life they have. There is no afterlife. Why? Bhasmi bhuta sarirasya punaragamana kutaha. Where the body will return, it's burnt, finish. It's just one life. So, Brashta Paraloka Sadhana, Alpa Buddhayaha. So, they have very limited intelligence. Drishta Matra Uddesha Prabhuti Mateha. So, whatever is visible, what will give results during very life, they only are interested in that. Yatharthavadis, as they call it, the Marxists call them Yatharthavadis. They are very, fundamentally, like for example, Karl Marx says, it's not the ideas of the mind which control matter, is the matter which is becoming conscious in your minds. So, which are socioeconomic historical conditions which determine what sort of ideas we have. That is, these, in a certain way, but it will be very foolish to reject all these rational thinkers as stupid. But there is a point that they do not pay much attention. A specific kind of rational thought can be very criminal in orientation because they can use, you can have highly humanistic material philosopher, materialistic thinkers. But here we are talking about people who are not interested in truth, not interested in good manners, interested in hinsha. So they are not humanitarian or humanistic thinkers. They are essentially blindly, extremely selfish, brutal form of hedonism, maximizing pleasure. They can be a threat to society. Ugra karmaha. So prabhuta mateha karmanaha hingsa ahitaha satravaha jagataha. So they are they are hinsra. They are very violent people. And then what they will do? They will not do hita. They will do ahita. It is bad for you. And they are satrava. They are enemies of the society. Jagataha prani jatasya. They are enemies of the society. You remember that famous play by Ibsen? That I think the what is this? Society's enemy or people's enemy? That Ibsen. So satrava jagata prani jatasya kshayaya. So they are like this. Vyagra sarpadi rupena prabhavanti. So they are reborn because they are having so much of violence in them. God sort of sends them to Tiryak Yoni. So according to their own nature, they'll be given a birth. So they may be like they'll be reborn as violent wild animals like the cat family, snakes, reptiles, and the crocodiles and stuff like this. Prabhavanti utpadyante. Tasmad iyam drishtihi atyanta atyantya adhogati hetutaya. That will push us down the stream of creations. That will be the downfall, the cause of our downfall, morally and spiritually. Sarvatmana Sreyorthivihi, those who are interested in trying to do better in life, to improve their consciousness, do well, and have a good life. Vihi here, for them, avaheya eva ityartha. We should always do, we should ignore this sort of philosophies in life. We'll stop here and we'll continue from the verse number 10 tomorrow. This is a simple chapter and there is not much philosophical ideas, but there are interesting advice on what we should accept and what we shouldn't accept. It's mostly very ethical. Discussion is largely ethical in this chapter. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, you can ask. I'll stop the YouTube here. Thank you.